Hey, sixth graders. This is lesson 6, day 2. Your book should be on page 54. And you are allowed to have a calculator, although I don't think you'll use it or need it today. But if your book isn't ready, go pause the video and go get it, and then come back. All right, so here's the plan for today. We're in the second day of lesson 6, and we're going to do some more exploring of what it means to divide a fraction by a fraction. We're going to use number lines and other pictures to help you understand it. Remember, you don't need to be able to solve the math problem so much as understanding the idea today. So, we're going to start with this problem right here, and it says, Kate has 2/3 yards of fabric to make small flags. Each flag requires 1/6 yard of fabric. How many flags can Kate make? So I'm going to underline and circle some stuff. I like to circle the important parts, such as Kate has 2/3 yards of fabric, and each flag requires 1/6 yard of fabric. And I like to underline the question, how many flags can Kate make? Okay, so get caught up and do that with me, and then I'm going to give you your job. All right, so now, as you are doing this here, what I want you to do is you're going to pause the video and you're going to do 2 through 8 on your own. Now, as you're doing this, it is okay if you're not sure. Give it your best shot. If you're absolutely stuck, you could always watch the video and do it with the video, but I'd rather you give it a shot and then watch the video and make corrections. You'll learn more that way. So, anyway, pause the video, do 2 through 8. As soon as you're done with number 8, restart the video. Go. All right, so let's see how you did. You should have 2 through 8 done and make any corrections as we go over this. So question 2 says you need to find out how many blanks are in blank. Now, since Kate has 2/3 yards of fabric and each flag takes 1/6, you need to find out how many 1/6 are in 2/3. Because remember, she has 2/3 yards. So you're going to figure out how many 1/6 yard flags you can get out of that. If you had them reversed, you had it wrong, just pause it and make your correction. Now 3, it says the number lines below are divided into thirds. Label 2/3 on the top number line to represent 2/3 yards of fabric. So first off, let me show you what they are talking about. So notice the number lines are both split into thirds. There's 1/3, there's 2/3, and then there's 3/3. So you see the 3/3 right there. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to label the top one, says label 2/3 on the top number line. So if this is 0 here, that means that this is 1/3, this is 2/3, and 1 whole is the same. I'm going to put it in parentheses as 3/3. All right, so number 3 is done. Now 4 says each flag requires 1/6 yard of fabric. Divide the bottom number line into 6 to show how many 6 are in 2/3. So each flag requires 1/6 yard of fabric. Now remember, I'm going to show you something here. This is a yard, because notice it goes from 0 to 1, right? She has only 2/3 yards of fabric. So she has what's in purple there. So what I'm going to do is divide the whole yard into 6. All right, so let me get my pen ready. So I'm going to first split it in half, and then each half in half, or into 3 pieces. So I'll do red lines. Now you should notice I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I just divided it into 6 pieces. Now the question says to show how many 6 are in 2/3. Now 5 says look at the bottom number line. How many 6 are there in 2/3? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade that again. Okay, so remember, here is my 2/3, and here are my 6. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 4/6 and 2/3. Oops, I still have it on highlighter. Sorry about that. Okay, so the answer to 5 is 4. or you could say 4/6. Either one of those is fine. Now 5 says, how many flags can Kate make? Well, remember, each flag takes a sixth, so each one of these purple marks is a sixth, right? A sixth of a yard. So each one of these is also a flag. So how many are there? There are 4 flags. Now 7 says, well, 2/3 divided into 1/6. Well, 2/3 divided into 1/6 we know is 4. Now, in 8, it wants to know the multiplication reciprocal. So notice you keep the 2/3 the same. I'm going to write a little K above that for keep. Notice you change the division sign to a multiplication sign. And then in the last step, we flip the 1/6 to its reciprocal, 6/1. By the way, you'll learn in the next lesson that we call this KCF. So when we solve that, 2 times 6 is 12, 3 times 1 is 3, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. All right, so remember, pause the video and make any corrections that you need to before you go on to the next page. But if you're doing great, good, stay with me. You don't have to pause anything. All right, so on to the next page. Here's what we are going to do. This says, Kevin has 6 cups of flour, and it takes 3/8 cup of flour to make 1 cake. So 3/8 cup of flour to make 1 cake. How many cakes can Kevin make? All right, so now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to only do 9 and 10. Now 10, if you're wrong, it's not a big deal. It's do you think? So it's a yes or no question, and yes, you have to explain why. And if you're wrong, so what? I'll explain it, and we'll go over that. So pause the video, do 9 and 10 now, restart it when you're done. Go. Okay. So let's see how you did. So in number 9, it says you need to find out how many blanks are in blank. Now, if Kevin has 6 cups of flour and you only need 3/8 of a cup to make a cake, that means you need to find out how many 3/8 are in 6. Okay? 10 says, do you think the number of cakes Kevin can make is greater than or less than 6? Why? Well, I'm sorry, this isn't yes or no. It's greater than or less than. So the correct answer is greater than. Now, I'll explain why. So if you had less than, don't start erasing it and changing it and not listen to what I'm going to say. So listen to what I'm going to say, and then you can pause and correct your answer then. So the reason it's greater than is because if each cake took 1 cup, that means you would need exactly 6 of those cups. You'd be able to get exactly 6 cakes because there's 6 cups, right? But since each cake takes less than a cup, that means you can get more cakes out of it because it takes less. Imagine if you can picture a smaller scoop to get flour. Because it takes less than a cup. You'd get more smaller scoops out of your 6 cups. All right? So what I'm going to say is greater than, and I'm going to say, since each cake takes less than 1 cup of flour, you can get more than 6 cakes. Okay, if you had it wrong, or if your explanation wasn't right, you can fix it. But if you had the right idea, just different words, that's absolutely fine. You don't need my exact words. All right, now, in 11, we're going to get you started here. We'll do some of this together. 11 says, represent 6 cups with 6 rectangles. 4 rectangles are shown below. Draw 2 more rectangles. So let's take a second to draw 2 more rectangles. And you could pause if I start going ahead of you. So each one of these rectangles are the 6 cups of flour that, what was his name, Kevin? That Kevin has. All right, now 12 says, circle and count groups of 3/8 in the model. How many did you circle? Well, the first thing you need to do is actually split these cups into eighths. So that's what we're going to do first. So what I want you to do is just take each one and split it into eighths. So what I usually do is I split one in half, and then you could do each half in half, and that gives us 4 pieces. And if you cut each one of those in half, you get 8 pieces. Now what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to go across. All right, so you can do this on your own, but you can do it while I'm doing it now. But if I start moving on, I want you to pause the video so you can get caught up. Actually, I'm going to pause it and finish it while it's paused. Okay, so we have each one of our 6 cups split into eighths. So if you're not done yet, make sure you pause it and get caught up. Now, in 12, remember it says circle and count groups of 3/8 in the model. How many did you circle? So I'm going to start you off. I'm going to switch to a different color. So I'm going to circle a group of 3/8. See, there's 3 of them. Here's another group of 3/8. Now for this next one, I have to get this one, and then one over here in order to get 3/8. Okay, get 3 more eighths. Now what you could do is just pause the video and continue until you circle all your 3/8. All right, pause it, go. Okay, so I have all of my groups of 3/8 counted. So did you count and did you answer this question, how many did you circle? So I'm going to do that now. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I have 16 circled. Now 13 says how many 3/8 cups of flour are in 6 cups of flour? Well, it's going to be 16. That's what we just answered. And 14, that means 6 divided by 3/8 is, or 6 cups split into groups of 3/8 is 16. Okay? So now, get caught up. You can pause the video if you need to. But now we're going to go down to the try it another way here. So this says, explore dividing a unit fraction using a common denominator. Now, what I'm going to do is show you this problem right here and see if you understand what I'm talking about. And then we'll have you try one. So this says, to solve 5 divided by 1/2, write 5 as a fraction with a denominator of 2. And think, how many halves are in 10 halves? So let me show you. So right now, you know it's 5 over 1, right? Well, if you make it a denominator of 2, you have to double the 5 and the 1 to get 10 over 2. And we're going to keep the 1/2 the same. So what we just did is we changed it like when you're adding and subtracting fractions. So the denominators are the same. We call that common denominators. All right, so that's our problem here, 10 halves divided by 1/2. Now the question says, think, how many halves are in 10 halves? Well, think about it. When you say the word 10 halves, doesn't that answer your question? How many halves are in 10 halves? Well, there are 10 halves because it's 10 halves. So the answer is 10. Use the same reasoning to find 8/6 divided by 2/3. Now, we're going to get you started here real quick. In the first one, it says, write 8/6 as a fraction with a denominator of 3. So what we're doing is we're taking this problem here, and you are reducing 8/6 so that it's thirds. All right? Now, take a second. We'll do that. If you think 8/6, if you cut each number in half, you get 4/3, right? So that goes here. Now, to solve 4/3 divided by 2/3, it says think, how many 2/3 are in 4/3? Think about that question. I'm going to write that problem bigger. We have 4/3 divided by 2/3. Think, how many 2/3 are in 4/3? Well, if you think of it, what I really just have to do is divide 4 divided by 2. Because think, how many 2's are in 4? There's 2 of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 4. There's 2 groups of 2 and 4. So the answer to that is 2. Now in 16, we're going to do it a little bit differently. We're still doing the same problem. So let me erase some of the junk I've written down. So in this one, we're going back to the original problem, which is 8/6 divided by 2/3. But this time, we're not going to reduce the 8/6. So this says, let me get my pointer ready, write 2/3 as a fraction with a denominator of 6. So what I want you to do is think of 2/3, change it so its denominator is 6. Well, to do that, you just double it, right? And you get 4/6. So our new problem is 8/6 divided by 4/6. Now to solve, we've got to write that 4/6 down there. To solve, think, how many 4/6 are in 8/6? So think about that. How many 4/6 are in 8/6? In other words, how many groups of 4 are in 8? So here's 8. How many groups of 4 can you get? 2, right? So there are 2 groups of 4/6 and 8/6. So guess what? That means the answer to our division problem, 8/6 divided by 2/3, is 2. All right? So that's just another way, the common denominator way of dividing fractions. Okay. Anyway, guess what? You're done with the video. You're done with me. Make sure you go back and make any corrections. And as always, thank you for watching.